So I put out a video earlier talking about the players that have been linked to the Cincinnati Bengals, possible players from the undrafted free agent, draft pool. Well, these are actually some players that the Cincinnati Bengals have already signed from the undrafted pool. And starting off right away, they did sign a tight end from Houston, 6'3", 245 pound, Christian Tahan right here, which honestly is a really, really good signing. Now, he didn't really put up crazy numbers in college, okay? 244 yards, 294, 380, 398, and 237. He did put up, in a total of, 5 seasons, he put up 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns. But again, keep in mind, he comes in and he's kind of like for depth purposes, rotational purposes. He might not make the team, but at least you actually have somebody who, can compete in training camp and who knows, maybe beats out somebody else and he becomes at least a third-string tight end for this team. So, not bad. Nothing too crazy special with signing him. Again, a lot of these players, these undrafted free agents, you're not really talking about who are really that crazy special. The next guy we have here is going to be a player we talked about earlier today, and that is Jacob Sayers. Now, Jacob Sayers is interesting because when they signed him, they also signed him with a signing bonus. So that's not always what you see whenever it comes to signing certain undrafted free agents. Usually, not always do they get signing bonuses. He got a signing bonus, so they really do like him. And I talked about him earlier today for that reason. It's because he's not bad. He really is a decent player. Not really ever got the starting chance on his team, which he played at East Tennessee State, but he definitely still played a lot of games. 40 games in his 4 years in college. 4 years in college. He gained 1,000 yards his senior year with 1,043 yards. He also had 10 touchdowns. So total in college, he had 2,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. 18 touchdowns total, which is not bad at all. For his receiving role, he's not really a receiving back. He's more of a, a bell cow back. So he's more of just a guy who's going to be kind of like Joe Mixon. He can receive the ball, don't get me wrong. That's not his specialty. He had 70 receptions in college for 620 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So you're not going to expect him to go out there and put up crazy numbers in the receiving game. But that's also why you drafted the running back in the 5th round who is like that, right? So this guy, if anything, could come in and become a rotational guy. Maybe he's utilized simply for, special team purposes. And maybe in training camp or preseason, you have a guy to see maybe, Chris Evans ends up not being the guy and you want another bell cow back. Keep in mind, P. Ryan was a bell cow back. So it's very possible you could have 2 bell cow backs on this roster and then a pass-catching guy. Kind of change it up a little bit. Nothing is worse than going out there on a play, having a certain formation out there, and the team's like, all right, they're passing the ball, guys. They're passing the ball. There's no way they're going to run the ball with him. There's no way he's the running back. They're passing the ball. So if you have someone else who can pass it but also, kind of change up the offense, it's not bad. Especially if this guy can block. That's the number one thing. You need to find somebody who can block. Blocking is the most underrated stat possible at the running back position. You find someone who can block good and gets the job done there, that is a game changer for the whole operation. So definitely will say good blocking player, WWWWW. All right, next player we have is Shariq Jackson. This is actually Bo Jackson's cousin, I believe. Yeah, I think it's his cousin, which is a wide receiver from Auburn. 6'2", 196 pounds. This is another player where you pick him up. He's not a starter on the roster, obviously. We drafted in the draft Charlie Jones, who's going to be that rotational guy with Tyler Boyd. Then we also drafted in the 6th round, I believe it was, I forget the Andre or whatever. We drafted him too. This is another receiver you're bringing in. You already got Trenton Irwin on the roster. You already got a couple other guys. So this is kind of just a rotational piece. It's nothing too crazy special. Just someone to kind of, take snaps. And also, again, practice squad players, special teams players. There's a lot of great players there. In his 5 seasons at Auburn, he never really did anything crazy special. He had 1 touchdown in 5 seasons, but as you guys can see, he played 2 games, 4 games, 13 games, 12 games. So he finally got the chance to actually really play the last 2 seasons, and that's where he really just started to take off. 527 yards and 1 touchdown, and in his last year, where he had 16 receptions, 217, and 0 touchdowns. Now, keep in mind, though, that there is a lot of great, amazing players in history who were undrafted free agents, and not always have they had amazing college careers. So it's very possible a guy could come in from, having a mediocre college career, come into the NFL, hit the right system, hits the right team, and now he becomes an absolute freaking stud for us for a very long time. But at the same time, though, whoever is coming in, especially the wide receiver position, it's going to be difficult because you already have Chase and T as your number 1 and 2. They're solidified. There's no changing that, right? Chase is going to be here for the next 5-10 years. Same thing with T. Higgins. So it's that third string guy that really now the job is open for. And there's going to be a lot of mouths going for that position. So there's going to be a lot of competition, a lot of players that we're probably going to see get cut. And, in the past, it was not really as much, I feel like, of a competitive spot as it is now. So there's going to be a lot of things to talk about moving forward, some of these players. So definitely will say, going to be interested to see who gets the starting role, right? Who gets the starting job. And that's another thing Zach Taylor really talked about in the press conference yesterday, was the fact that, listen, at the end of the day, not everyone is going to come in here, learn the system, and perfect the system. He said he believes most players that come in, they can work the system, they can do the system correctly, but they aren't always the correct fit. Cincinnati doesn't run a system that's impossible for new people to learn. So, every player that comes in here, whether you are a first-round pick or you're a seventh-round pick or you're an undrafted player, they're going to give them the tools necessary to be the best player they can be. But some players are just not going to work out. And that's another thing that, I think a lot of people realize is like, you're like, oh, yeah, this guy, we picked up this guy, right? And he ends up becoming nothing. He could go somewhere else and become good. The Ravens drafted Darren Waller. He was a bust. He was a nobody for them. He was absolutely garbage. He got suspended 2 years in a row for drugs. And then what happened? He leaves the Ravens, goes to the Raiders, becomes one of the best tight ends in the league. It's very possible that not every player works on every system, but sometimes, players like, for example, this guy right here, he might join the Bengals in the preseason, have 400-yard games, work really good, and the Bengals trade him, right? So you can always trade players if they don't work out for you, especially undrafted players. So works out pretty dang well, guys. Tell me down below your thoughts and opinions, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.